Hey everybody, it is Calxiyn here, and if you guys enjoyed this video, you should subscribe for more Shadows House reaction highlights and discussions. I'm so excited for this week. I mean, Shadows House is basically like the highlight of my week, or like this year at this point for me, and so every week I'm excited, but I'm super excited because today we have like so many mysteries. Will Ricky push Lou in the hole? Like we talked about that last week. We have Emilico and how she'll save Kate. Like there's just so much cool stuff going on in Shadows House right now, and I'm super excited. Remember that if you guys want to see my full-length reaction to this episode and all the other ones, you can basically get 9 full-length timer and subtitle reactions at the Royal Advisors tier. And so basically it's a you press play when I press play. You can watch my full reactions, while this is going to be my reaction highlights and my discussion. But if that is what you're here for, then why don't we just get into it? Oh, they're talking about how, like, the eventuality, like Edward and Ed. Oh, see, so that calls Edward's method into question because they have to think for themselves instead of obeying. That's what I said a couple weeks ago. But I also said the loyalty thing, right? So that's what makes it so interesting. Well, maybe Edward wants to create a new world, so maybe that's what will change. Like, more a partnership versus just taking over their face like maybe these guys have, you know, or taking over their body, right? What if that's the new world Edward wants to create? A world where it's a co-partnership, like Ed and Edward work together instead of just taking it over, you know, instead of just taking over someone. Oh, I wonder if they're union too, because Aline called him Ed, right? So I think Aline, maybe she's combined with her doll too, because that sounded like her talking like Ed. Oh, this is so fucked. Oh my gosh. Oh, Ricky, no! If Ricky's out here, that means he's not in the hole! Damn! Oh, he's calling him out on his bullshit, damn! Damn! Oh, wow! Wow! Sean just called him out! Oh, damn! Damn! He's like, quiet. Oh, I love him. I love John, though. I love this. Damn. Ricky is getting humbled. He wanted to be the sabotager. Oh, look at his face. I love that. Ah! Look at the writing on the wall. Oh, but now he knows. It still is going to take him a long time, though. You'll never make it. Oh, the shears. Oh, he sees that he did something to her. No, Ricky, you murderer. Not murderer. No, she didn't. No. Yeah. Ah, John, don't help him, John. Do not help him. Yeah, exactly. Don't help him. Don't trust him. He did the bad thing. Now he'll be punished. Damn. I don't know. Maybe though I'm jumping to conclusions. Maybe Lou gave it to him because she felt bad about breaking her promise. Oh no, they got out! Oh, they were first! Oh my gosh, it's everybody else! Yeah, so maybe Lou did give it to him in order to make up for the fact that she wasn't going to be able to help Ricky because Louise told her not to, you know? Oh, see, I said that was one of my theories from last week. That was like option 3, is that he would just walk away, but that she would make it up to him. Oh, I love that. This is one of the good outcomes. Aww, she's so cute. Aww. No, well that's so nice that she kind of likes him. That was a signal. Oh, that's fucked. Oh, Ricky, you're gonna die, sir. Oh no. What if John feels the guilt about it? Oh, it's a boulder, not even a phantom. They were trying to murder him. Bro. Oh, he's willing to die. Oh no, Ricky, I'm so sorry. I should have never doubted you. I didn't want you to die. No, they won't die. John will help. No. No. John is gonna do something with his explosion. Come on, John, use your soot power. gross. I don't know if I like that. I thought that she was the level-headed one. Her face is showing, but it seems like that the doll has been overtaken. Damn. So maybe Edward wants to change things. Maybe he's not bad. Oh, that was the puzzle! Oh, that's so cool! Wow, that's so smart! I love that! I love their commentary. This is such a cool episode. Oh! She's so careful, too. I want to hear them! Let me hear them! Oh my gosh. No, she's just happy to see you. Oh. I love her. Damn. Oh, I love this. I'm getting chills. Oh, they're just catching up. Can y'all maybe get out, sis? Oh, but this is a nice reunion. I want to know what Shirley and Rum were talking about. Oh. No, look at them laughing together. Maybe we do need to break 2 of the chains. Have her swing and jump out. I don't know. No, she missed the keys. She didn't get them. That's bullshit, though. How is she supposed to know? Oh, but see, it's open at the top. You gotta jump out, climb out. No. She can climb out. There's a hole. She thinks the same thing. She thinks badly of him. No, Kate. Oh, Emilico knows. Oh. Kate. Yeah, can't she just jump out the top now? She's almost out. He's gonna help, isn't he? A debt. Oh, for the flower. Oh, now they're leaving. Oh, that was so nice. Emilico being nice to him. Panned out. Yeah, everyone helped us along the way. Yeah, they changed because of her. Oh, come on. No, Kate. What is she? Oh, great. Okay, she jumped out. Oh, look at her coming through the sun. You too. Oh, into the wheelbarrow, into the wheelbarrow. Oh, safety by wheelbarrow. Yay. Oh, wow, thrilling. Yeah, they must have been freaking out. Oh. He's just laughing. He sees their potential. Maybe. Ooh. All right, everybody, let us get into the discussion now. Now, I have cracked it, okay? I understand everything, and I know that that sounds like so dramatic, but like, I thought that Edward was a bad guy. I didn't like him. I thought he was an asshole. I thought he was kind of like power hungry. You know, he just wanted to rise to the top and didn't care what kids he killed or stepped on. This episode has entirely changed my mind about Edward. I think, or Edward and Ed, because they're still 2 separate, and we'll get to that. I feel like that Edward is like almost misunderstood, and we'll talk about it. So let's start here, because this is like the basis for my theory, right? Faces will lose their sense of self in due time, becoming but faithful servants of their shadows. And so what does that mean? That basically means that the shadows on the 3rd floor, in my opinion, have body snatched their dolls, right? Their dolls have no identity, no autonomy. They have basically like become enclosed in shadow. They are just like an empty vessel that the shadows have kind of like morphed with, and like they only show their face sometimes. And we see that with, I'm not sure what the girl's name is, but the butterfly lady, she does that this episode, and we see that. Then shall shadow and face unite as a complete being, right? So this is the explanation, is that this is what happens, this is the end goal, and that was like the reveal of like the true motivations, you could say, behind Shadow's house and like these debuts and this whole system in the first place, right? In that sense, it calls into question the methods of Edward's debut. And I found this like so compelling just because I had thought the same thing. thing. Like in the debut episode, if you guys remember watching my discussion, I was like, well, why would they want the dolls to think for themselves if that's like not, not what they're supposed to do? Like, why would you want the dolls to think for themselves and break out of the room that they were locked in? That doesn't make a lot of sense. On the other hand, I was like, well, like maybe there's a loyalty element. Like, it's okay if you think as long as you're thinking to save your master. And I love that because this is the exact conversation, like they are having the same conversation that we were having a couple weeks ago. But first, like this asshole, see this guy, he's the bad guy, the guy with the crazy hair. It's a mistake to have shadows be friendly with their face. Faces are meant to be taken. So again, this is sort of hinting at their like ideology, the whole body snatching thing. They have taken their faces have no autonomy, no identity, no nothing. That seems to be the case for the third floor shadows. Having faces rescue their master, and see, they don't even call them dolls, they call them faces, because that's like, it's not even that they're dolls. Like the end goal is for them to just be faces, right? Having faces rescue their masters creates an emotional bond and encourages them to think for themselves, right? And so emotional bond is very interesting because when you think about it, like if you care about your doll, you may not want combination, right? Like you may not want their personality and their autonomy and their identity to disappear if you like them, right? It's almost like he's saying like, oh, well, that's a bad thing because if a shadow gets too attached to their doll, they won't be willing to like unify with them. I think that that's very interesting that he says that, again, considering their ideology that they have. But is it not important to promote loyalty? So again, like Dorothy is basically saying the exact same thing that I thought, right? Like, oh, I thought back then, well, like maybe it's a loyalty thing. However, a debut that could cause them all to fail is quite a risk. And so basically what she's saying is like they could have all failed if they were mindless and didn't think for themselves and like never left the room, right? Or if they were even mindless in the maze. And so she's saying like, hey, that was risky because historically dolls don't really act like this. They don't do stuff like this. And so what if they all had failed? Like what if none of the dolls ever left the room? So she says, quite the experiment. Some are showing signs of new powers blossoming. In that respect, Sophie looks favorably upon Edward. And so again, Sophie seems to be like soot obsessed, and this is why she says this, and there's a callback to that, I guess, later in the episode, or I guess this is like the foreshadowing of that moment that we see later in the episode, of course. And so she's like, well, it's letting the soot power come through, so I look favorably upon Edward for that. That's like her whole like stake in this, is that she likes to see, I guess, the new power rising. And so he says, do you wish to mass produce star bearers? And so that's a very interesting thing to say, because on one hand, it could mean like the mass produced star bearers thing could mean that only people with powerful soot have star bearers. So he could be answering her question. Like he could be saying, if you only care about people with powerful soot, are you just trying to make a little star bearer army? Because the only reason why you would want people with powerful soot is to be a star bearer. Or he could be saying, why, do you guys want to mass produce star bearers? Because the star bearers are the only ones allowed to think for themselves and be in partnership with their doll. It could be possible that that's what he's referring to. That, mass producing star bearers, mass producing problem solvers, the star bearers are the only ones allowed to solve problems and actually think. See, so he says, no good will come of having them ponder matters to no avail. So that's like the whole trivial matters thing. And so it seems like that maybe star bearers are the only ones that are encouraged to think. And so I feel like that's very interesting that he says it that way, that he's like, oh, well, this can only mass produce star bearers because, they'll be all like thinking. How dare that? How could they be thinking, This means there are yet many possibilities here in Shadow's house. What an interesting debut. So see, he finds it like interesting. And so I feel like it's so creepy too, how his face is like so like empty, I guess, in a sense, because like really like his face shape is probably like this, like, a oval or whatnot. But like all these dark lines make it seem like his face is almost like a wolf or something, just because like his face is like so amassed in shadow even more than anybody else's that you can't even like tell anything about him. I wonder if that's to like prevent the side profile thing, because something that was said in previous episodes was like, oh, I can see you smile if you have a side profile, but with this, like, you can't tell anything at all, and so that's super scary. Edward's methodology is revolutionary. It will be difficult for him to judge swiftly. That Edward makes one's blood boil, and so he seems to be a very, like, like Ricky, but like if Ricky festered into a bad person, because they say like, oh, he's rolled out quite the lavish performance, right? Is he trying to steal Ryan's thunder? So that is the same thing that Ricky was worried about, right? Is, oh, are all these dolls better than me? How can I not be the most like stellar one of all? So it seems like Ryan's a little bit nervous, right? That somebody's like coming for his spot, you know? And so I think that that's interesting that maybe all of the 4 that are here are supposed to be mirrored in some way to all of the 4 that are on the board right now, if that makes sense. Like maybe Dorothy is supposed to be like Louise. Maybe, I don't know. Like I feel like earlier, didn't they say if I were John, I would do this. If I were Emilico, I would do that. So maybe like Dorothy is like Kate. Maybe Ryan is like Patrick and Ricky. I feel like Monocle Guy, maybe he's like John in a way, and then the other girl would be like Louise. But they're not like them as in they're the same. They're foils, or they're mirrored. They're almost like, this is what Kate/Emilico would be if they stayed as the Ice Queen. This is what Patrick and Ricky would be if Patrick stayed being an asshole. Like basically, this is how everyone would be if they never ran into Emilico and they were all like cutthroat, if that makes sense. Now the question is, there's only 4 of them, but we have 5 on the board. I still think that Rum's gonna die, and so that's why I'm not including her in the lineup over here. Butterfly Girl would be Louise in this case, right? And so I wonder if there's like some sort of metaphor there that the adults are all kind of like worse versions of the kids, and the next generation will be the one that like clears up all their mistakes and like be better than the adult. So now they're talking about the fact that he transformed in the garden. The union of bodies is this house's greatest secret. Well, great secret. Maybe not the greatest. I'm sure that there are more secrets. And so it was foolish to do so where the candidates might see. And so this is a secret that people don't necessarily know about this yet, but I guess that the second floor nobles do, obviously, because I think that they are unified as well, to an extent. And we'll talk about that. I feel like that there's definitely something going on. Like, obviously, Edward can do it, so he knows about it. I'm sure that these 2, they're in the room, they know about it. I wonder how far it goes down. And so they're basically saying that somebody could have seen him do that, and that would have freaked them out. And so she says, Ed, you have sunk too far into your own world. And so now we're going to talk about my Edward theory, okay? Because there's no better time than right now with all of this evidence laid out. So here's what I am thinking. So obviously we can see that the 3rd floor nobles have body snatched their dolls, but Ed and Edward function differently, where they seem like they're more of a partnership. Like they comfort each other, they plan together, they talk to each other. Like it's very, very interesting how they present all of this information, right? This is what it's supposed to be. This is what unification is. You know, you're not supposed to let your doll have a personality, yet Ed and Edward exist, right? Where Ed and Edward clearly have different personalities. They speak to each other kind of as equals, like they're a partnership. And so it's very interesting that we see this is how things are supposed to be, but Edward breaks the mold of that, so why? And so she says something very interesting, and I feel like that they are unified too. I think Aline and Geralt are combined as well, but maybe they are kind of in on the same thing that Edward is in on. And what I mean by that is she says, Ed, you have sunk too far into your own world. And so that is Ed referring to the doll, which we see Aline's doll refer to him as like last episode, whereas the other doll, Geralt, refers to him as like Edward, right? They kind of do the interchanging thing, but that's why I think that they have been combined as well, just because she says the same name that the doll said, that her doll said, right? So I feel like that's very interesting that she, as the shadow, is talking about the doll, right? Like you think that she would be talking about the Shadow Master, unless they are also combined and function maybe in a very similar way, and have given their dolls like autonomy and take a back seat like in the head, similar to how Ed was probably like out for most of the time, and then Edward was kind of like in the back, like listening and like observing until he came out in full force playing the piano and everything. And so I feel like that basically what I'm getting at is that all 3 of them, right, Edward's posse, I guess, Edward's group, they are all partnerships, whereas the 3rd floor, they are all body snatchers. And what does that mean in the case of Ed? I feel like that what we're getting into with this, I felt like that this is what made everything click for me personally, because she says, Ed, you have sunk too far into your own world. And what do we hear last episode? We hear him say that, you know, it doesn't matter as long as no one interferes with my plans for a new world. And at first I was like, what is he talking about? Like, I didn't quite understand. I was sort of thinking, oh, well, maybe he wants to be the king, change up Shadow's house, right? Like the new world order of things. Like, I didn't know. But now I understand. I think that I get what Ed is trying to do. I feel like that Ed and Edward are trying to get rid of the body snatch system and enforce a partnership between Doll and Shadow. Like, the unification process will still happen, but the dolls will not lose their autonomy or their personality or anything like that. Not their identity, right? They will keep all of that. They'll just unify as one being, and then, like, they will both have, like, the equal right to, like, come and go, I guess, like, come out or not come out. Whereas, like, the Shadows on the third floor have body snatched the faces to basically only, like, do what they want, right? They, you know, their faces can't, like, come out and talk to other dolls or something. They're just kind of trapped in there is sort of the implication. So I feel like that Ed wants to create this new system where everyone works in a partnership and stop the body snatching. Like, he basically wants to stop the body snatching system, and the only way that he can do that is that if he rises high enough in the house, I'm assuming, to be Lord Grandfather's successor, because I'm assuming that, like, Shadows probably die. Like, there's not really an indication that Shadows are, like, immortal or anything, especially if the dolls are human. Like, we're sort of thinking, like, if the dolls die, like, what are you gonna do, right? And so I'm sort of assuming that maybe there's some sort of successorship, and, like, maybe he even thinks that he could take out the Shadows on the third floor and Lord Grandfather, right? Like, that would be kind of, like, fucked up if he, like, challenged him to a duel or something, you know what I mean? Or, like, tried to assassinate Lord Grandfather. I'm assuming that Lord Grandfather has a lot of power, but maybe that's the end goal. For him to be Lord Grandfather, then he can enforce this new system. Because at first, I thought that Ed was a bad guy. Like, I thought that Edward was an asshole, that, you know, he was, like, being, like, really cutthroat to these kids, right? He was like, oh, I need to fail one, right? And that almost meant death. Like, he tried to kill Ricky with a boulder, but now I don't see him as this, like, mwahaha, I'm evil. Like, I don't really see him as that. I see him more as the ends justify the means, right? He doesn't enjoy this. And they even say, aren't you looking forward to the drama? He says no. And he's like, oh, well, you know, I'm just focused on my plan. So he's not, like, relishing in it. At least I don't think so. Maybe Edward is, but I don't think Ed is, like, relishing in it or anything. I think that in reality, he is just saying that one doll's death is enough to, like, justify the means of outlawing this system forever and, like, stopping the body snatching, because how many dolls have been lost to the body snatch process, right? Like, I'm sure that that's Ed's way of thinking, and so his new world, his own world, is where this is, like, common knowledge, and then Dolls and Shadow can just go back and forth as they please, because that's what she's saying. You've sunk too far into your own world. You're doing this, like, you know, where anybody can see you. That would be something that's appropriate in your world, but not, like, in the current world that they are in, because this Shadow's house has, like, completely different, like, rules and ideology, right? And so I feel like that Ed's whole mission is to stop the face stealing. That's my perception, and I feel like that gives, like, a level to his character, because he's not just, like, an evil guy. He's still working against the protagonist. He's still working against the heroes, but he's more of, like, I guess, an anti-hero or, like, a third-party faction. Like, yes, he does work against the protagonist. At the same time, maybe he's just trying to, like, dismantle the system, right? Which is what I said at the very beginning of the show, that's what I thought that it was all gonna be about, was Kate and Emilico dismantling the system, but now I'm like, oh, well, maybe Edward's trying to do it. Now, the question is, will Edward be able to succeed? Because something that they talk about, and I think we'll get to it at the end, is, like, if Ed can't fail anybody, what happens to him, right? And so I'm sure that he would be discarded of, like, that he would either be, like, you know, put down a peg, like, maybe they would give him a warning and then just put him on the same sort of level as Aline and Gerald are now, sort of thing, like, just kind of, like, banish him back to second floor. But I feel like that if he's not able to fail anyone, he could actually get in trouble. And so what if that's what the season ends with, is that, you know, next episode, we get all this backstory about Ed, like why he wants to do it, what his plans were, but he can't fail anybody, and then he's like executed, and then we get all sad because like he just, you know, he was just like trying to like reform the system, bro. Like he didn't mean any actual harm, I guess. Like not that he didn't mean harm. He tried it. He tried harm, but he wanted like a better world for everyone, and he just saw it as the ends justifying the means for all of the dolls that had been lost and stuff. And so I feel like that's very interesting to think about, and like that could be like a very tragic thing that like this guy that we've kind of hated up until now because he's been really the only antagonist other than Barbie and like Sarah, I guess, right? Like this guy that we've hated up until now, he actually, you know, wanted to change things and change the system, maybe for like tragic reasons too, because in last episode they talk about how that they're the only 3 left from their debut, and so yeah, like somebody always fails in a debut, but there was this shot in the scene where it was like him, Geralt, and then Aline, or Aline's doll, I guess, and then in the middle there was just this empty space, like this void. And so I wonder like if one of their friends died post-debut, and like this is like their vengeance, and they basically formulated this plan together, the shadows agreed, and like now they're like, revolution time, you know, it's time to do a coup. And if Edward dies, I feel like that it'll actually be up to like Kate and Emilico to change everything. You know, like even if they don't know about it, they will kind of be the next hope, if that makes sense. Just like given the nature of their relationship, and given how Emilico has changed every single doll, and even like a lot of the shadows as well that she has encountered, she's changed them. So given that Emilico is this big catalyst for change, if Ed dies, right, like maybe like it won't be literally like he gives the plans to Emilico or something, but one day Emilico may like want to take up that mantle if they find out about the unification thing. Like that could be where the show starts to go. Or maybe she will find out this season, and then, you know, next season is like trying to be that revolutionary, trying to be a star bearer, right? Like she wants to do. She wanted to be a star bearer to kind of find out the secrets to quell her curiosity, you could say. But what if that's a role that she like grows into as something more, as that sort of like revolution type thing? I don't know, but it's kind of a very interesting thing to think about. And so I feel like that Ed is a lot more tragic if this is true, like if my theory is right. Like this has just changed the way that I see Ed entirely. Like I feel like that if what I'm saying is correct, at least like I feel like in my head I've already changed my mind about him based off of something that's not even true. But I'm saying if this is true, this is like so cool, like for a character, because again, you like hate him, right? You hate him and you're like, oh, this guy's like such an asshole, he's so creepy, right? But now, like, if you actually see, like, no, he wants to, like, dismantle the system and save the kids, he just thinks that the ends justifies the means, like, he's a more of a gray villain, I feel like that could be very interesting, and that, like, this, like, very much interests me. Like, this has me, like, hooked on something. Like, the show already hooked me, but if we're going into, like, that sort of nuanced type thing, like I'm so excited to see where all of that goes. So John went in the soot remover, but I don't quite know where that was on the map, and so we'll go with it. I'm sure it was somewhere and I just forgot. There would be no need to change 3 times a day with one of these. And so that's a very interesting thing that he says though, when you think about it, because they don't have access to a soot remover. And I have to wonder if that's because like all of the soot is collected from the room somehow. Like I'm assuming there's a vent and it goes in the vent and they analyze their soot. And so I wonder like a soot remover would somehow defeat the purpose of doing that, or like that would like clean them too much and they need the soot that comes from the rooms to go with my theory that like soot is like a resource like coal or something, and they can like press it like a soot remover. Like technically you could go in the soot remover and then all the soot would travel up the same pipe, but I wonder why they don't have access to one. It could also be because when you think about it, the whole thing is appearance, right? Like, oh, you know, your doll is your face, they're supposed to be your appearance, and so maybe like making them get dirty 3 times a day is supposed to make them value their appearance more, and so cleaning, like being clean all the time, would kind of defeat the purpose of that insecurity that Shadow's house is supposed to basically like grow in all of the shadow. Like I feel like that's kind of the thing, is that like the Shadow's house propaganda would not work as well if people could just clean themselves 3 times a day. Like obviously there are other reasons for the face, like facial expression, but that's just something that I'm kind of thinking. And if there was a soot remover, you wouldn't necessarily need the the dolls to clean, right? Like if the same soot remover system was accessible. And so in order to justify the rules of the dolls, right? Oh yeah, they're gonna clean for you and they'll be your faces, you know, that's not as important, you know, even though clearly it is, right? Like it's almost like to mask what the purpose of the dolls really are by saying, oh, they're just maids, they clean, right? When really, like, you're gonna body snatch them later. So I feel like that maybe that's why the whole soot remover thing, I don't know. And so here's the puzzle over here. So the bars are locked in the ground, but the problem is you need 2 people to basically like lift, like one on each side. So he says there's nothing we can do, we'll have to take a detour. We can check on Mistress Kate on the way. So they're basically like going back the way they came at this point. They can't get through here, so they were gonna go like all the way around like John's entire route to the exit, right? And he's like, no, John's not gonna meet with her because he's still embarrassed. He promised not to until he passed this test. Then Sean says, then we won't. But John's like, but John would save her if she asked, right? So he's just very like flip-floppy. On one hand, he doesn't want to see her. On the other hand, right, like maybe she needs saving, right? And so he's just like, oh, like what is happening? Because like his master was not like this before. But anyway, turns around, we see Ricky. And Ricky has like the most evil facial expression on. And I'm like, I'm sorry I ever doubted you, Ricky, because last week, if you guys remember, I gave 3 options. Ricky gets pushed in the hole, Louise and Lou get pushed in the hole, or Ricky walks away. And then in Ricky walks away, I also gave kind of a sub option of like Lou would sort of like stand up to Louise and be like, I made a promise to him, do. And like that kind of happened, not in the sense that I thought where they would still go with Ricky, but that part did happen. And I'm really glad that that was the outcome because I really, like in all of the options that I presented, something that I really talked about last week was I want Lou to have this character moment, to have this like signal of change, and pushing them in the hole would not necessarily do that, right? And so I thought that like that would be such a great idea is if like Ricky just kind of walks away and then she actually like kind of takes a stand to Louise in a sense by like being like, well, you know, I made a promise, I still have to help him. And she did that in a very like subvert, covert kind of way. Like she did it very like slyly as to not tip off Louise to what she was doing. And I think that that was a really good outcome and a really good scene. But when I saw him here, I was like, oh no, he did it, right? And that's, I think, what you're supposed to think. That's what John thinks as well. Or I guess Sean, I should say. That is what Sean thinks as well. Sean, you want to get to this side. Get down on your knees and beg. Then I'll help you, right? And so with all this animosity, again, it wouldn't be like so far-fetched to think that maybe, right, that he did something bad. But then he says, if you came from that direction, you want to get to this side. No, I already saved Master Patrick. So this was where, like, Ricky starts to go off the deep end, like, with this bluff, because, like, clearly there would be no possible way for him to be over here and have saved Master Patrick, but he doesn't know that, because he doesn't know where he is exactly. I'm just killing time with a little stroll. And I like how John, like, pops out and he's like, oh, is that Patrick's face? That's right. I figured out more of the labyrinth than you, Ricky. I even know where Master Patrick is. All your bluster was in vain, right? And so, you know, he's basically calling him out. I thought that this was a great scene. Like, you could not possibly have saved Master Patrick because he is in, like, this half, in a sense, right? Considering where you are, you haven't yet saved him, right? And so now he's just, I really like the anime face that he's giving right there, and I'll point out where exactly. Sean, would you mind answering this? Doesn't having your master here give you an unfair advantage, right? And so the reason why he's saying this is because John could just order Ricky to open the bar and like they would have no choice but to listen, I guess, just because of the hierarchy, right? John wants to learn about the relations between dolls. You want to learn a lot, don't you, John? Very suspicious. Sounds like dismantling the system to me. No, I think that maybe it could be possible, though, that like they are like the next generation of Edwards, you know, if Edward does die. I mean, even if he doesn't, but if he does, because John is like very curious and Emilico is very curious, right? I don't know. So please proceed as if John weren't here. But Ricky would obey you if you told him to. And so like all of this could have been avoided, but John, like, you know, he does not want to give Sean the easy way out. So as much as he wants to observe the relations between dolls, I feel like that he also wants to see Sean, like, not necessarily be aggressive, but like take a stand, if that makes sense. Like, he wants to see Sean actually try as well. Like, I feel like he's testing Sean, especially with how, like, a couple episodes ago, he was like, oh, I wish you would be more casual. I wish you would be kind of like this, kind of like that. Like, assert yourself more, it kind of felt like. And so I feel like, oh, he said, oh, is that any tone to take with your master? And then Sean was like, no. And then he was like, no, I'm just joking. It's perfect. Like, he wants Sean to, like, come out a bit more in terms of personality. It doesn't seem like he just wants Sean to be his face. Then he shows him the map. I already know most of the paths. You, however, have a long way to go before you'll see Master Patrick. Your path will take you about twice around the garden. And so I love this face. Like, this is the face he's been giving the entire time. I'll tell you what, if you apologize for hitting me, I'll lend you a hand, right? So he thinks that he's, like, got him, I guess, right? That he's finally cornered Ricky. And so I love the point system over here. That brought a lot of, like, levity to the scene. Not so fast. From what you said, I can assume Master Patrick is here, right? And so he kind of subconsciously gave him the location, right? Like, Sean accidentally gave it to him. I really had no idea. I must thank you for your loose-lipped leak, right? And he gets embarrassed, but now we have this rebuttal of, I'm done wasting time here, because ultimately, Ricky is in a worse position compared to John and Sean. They can just go back the way they came and still make it, but Ricky will never make it and save his shadow at the same time. So then he gives, like, this unsincere apology. That was utterly insincere, but drawing this out will only waste more time. Emilico would probably help him, no questions asked. All right, let's open the gate. And so, yeah, apparently they were tied. And then he says, enough with that. And when did we each score another point? I think that maybe... I don't know when exactly, but I think that maybe it was during their little, like, oh, you will never make it, like, back around. Like, they don't say that yet, but, like, this is a waste of time. We're done here. That could have been a point to Sean, because Ricky is now like, oh, okay, well, I'll apologize, because Ricky is realizing that, yes, like, he doesn't have enough time. So I think that that's where, like, the second point came from, was John and Sean basically like, hey, we'll walk away. Whereas Ricky, like, he's like, no, wait, don't walk away just yet, I'll apologize. So as they're lifting the bars, Sean sees the shears, and so he's like, aren't those the shears Lou chose? Ricky, what have you done to her, right? And so he seems like a little, irritated at that. Lou gave them to me. I swear upon Master Patrick that I'm not lying. Now, this should have, like, indicated to me that Ricky was telling the truth, because there's nothing more that he values compared to, like, Patrick, right? But I, thought that he was guilty as fuck. Obviously, you guys would have seen in my reaction, right? And so I love this fake out, though, because we all think that he pushed her, right? Like, that's, like, one of the options I said last week. Like, I was really convinced that he did actually push her. Why would Lou give you her shears? You've tried to trick people into doing your bidding the entire time. Now, that is true. He did try to trick Lou, so, that's not it's not an entirely wrong assumption, right? I can't trust you. And so, yeah, like, why would you? Why wouldn't you trust him? Wait, answer my question. You won't believe me no matter what I say. That's the same as insulting Master Patrick. And so I really enjoyed this reaction in hindsight, because at first I thought he was just bullshitting, but now you can see he's genuinely upset at the fact that, like, he swore upon Master Patrick and Sean still did not believe him, right? And so that's, like, the utmost insult. And so I found that, like, really compelling on the second watch, that this scene actually shows a lot of Ricky's innocence, but if we're thinking like Sean, we won't see it just like Sean doesn't see it. But now in hindsight, you can think, oh, yeah, he was, like, telling the truth, right? You can see how everything pointed to him telling the truth. Meanwhile, Louise has arrived. They don't even say, like Lou and Louise. They just say Louise has arrived. And I love all the flowers. I really like that she has flowers in her hair, and you can actually see Louise picking these in the garden. Like, she's distracted by picking the flowers for Lou, as Lou is talking to Ricky and giving him the shears. And so I do wonder about these veiled dolls, just because I'm like, sis, there are a lot of y'all. I'm a little worried. About this. To think we'd be greeted so grandly at the exit, and now we actually get some very interesting stuff going on here. How fine it feels to come in first. Right, okay, so we see two different people here. I think that this guy with the glasses was helping with the thing for Kate, like the cage in the very first episode. I'm not sure if I've seen her before. She doesn't look very familiar to me. Obviously, Barbie and her doll are over there, and then we get this really tall guy, and I think that this really tall guy is actually her star bearer, and so it's funny to see the height difference just because like they were on the same level in that scene when they were yelling at everyone, but I guess Barbie was on a stool. So like she was really like, you know, on some giant stool to be like at his level. Like he's so fucking tall. Like I feel like that maybe he's like almost like into adulthood, like similar to like Edward and stuff, whereas everybody else to me looks more like 16, 17, right? Whereas Edward, Geralt, and Aline, I feel like that they're more like adults, like young adults. So I can't say a lot about them just because like they literally just got here, but it could be setting up some characters that we will interact with in future episodes, just because like maybe this is like the next level. Like, okay, well you guys passed, so these are the next dolls that you'll be running into. Right now what's interesting is that we don't see Rose and Rosemary, and we also don't see Sarah and Mia, so that sort of implies that there may be like a rank above them too as well. Like there's newly debuted dolls, and then there's dolls that have debuted for a while, right? And so I feel like that maybe these are dolls that debuted like before Sarah and Mia debuted, right? And so there's kind of like a hierarchy in terms of your debut time maybe as well, and so that's why like all of them get to be here, but maybe Sarah and Mia aren't here. At least I didn't see them, so I wasn't sure, but that could be why. So after this debut, Sarah and Mia will be present for the next debut, and so on and so on and so on. Maybe Emilico and Kate one day will be present at a debut in the future. And then we see there's Barbie with her shadow mistress as well, and I like that we see a better look at her clothes now. You see the thorns right there. Obviously a lot of the girls have roses, right, where the dolls have bows in place of the roses, and flowers have a lot of symbolism in this show, but I thought that that was just sort of interesting to sort of see the doll. But I wonder, is that her accurate facial expression? Because Barbie was a very like angry character when we saw her, and she kind of still looks angry now, but I kind of headcanoned her doll as like super sweet, and that would be like so fucking funny. But if she's trying to mimic right now, she's either not doing a great job, or like her shadow is the same, pretty much the same as her. Let's look at everybody else. I don't know, like it doesn't seem like anyone has like giant facial expression, if that makes sense, but they are all wearing the clothing that you're supposed to wear when you are in face, when you're supposed to be the face, but like none of them are smiling or anything. They're just kind of all So is she supposed to be the face right? Like, if she is supposed to be the face right now, I don't know how well she's doing, is basically what I'm trying to say. Louise made it out. That means Ricky was telling the truth, right? And so I'm assuming that he knows it's Louise just based off of math. Like, he knows, like, based on where Rum and Emilico were, that nobody else could have gotten out except for Louise. And so Ricky starts to leave, and then we get this nice transition, right? His hair has fallen out, right? Like, he's kind of, like, disheveled because he's so mad. But then it transitions back to this scene, and so this is actually something I said last week, if you guys remember, is that I was like, well, what if Ricky, he has this angry expression, and he looks up and he's like surprised, or he looks and then he turns away, like it's a fake out basically. We thought it was an aggressive expression for the push, but instead it's actually like, you know, gonna be a, like, he turns away or he looks surprised, right, if Lou had come up to him right away. A living doll would never lay hands on a shadow master. I'm not some fool who let a moment of passion disgrace Master Patrick, right? So again, we see that he's thinking about Patrick, right? That's the most important thing to him. Like, that would disgrace Patrick. And so then Lou calls to him, I guess, or like taps him, and then he turns around, and then we have this like great scene with Lou's character development. And so he says, Mistress Louise's orders, right? So he's like, oh, did like Louise make you do this? No, it has nothing to do with Mistress Louise. And so you can actually see that she's preoccupied picking the exact same flowers that she would like to put in Lu's hair. And what's interesting is that, like I said before, the dolls have bows while these shadows have flowers, but it seems like that Louise broke the rule in order to like pretty up Lu a bit more. So it's very interesting that she gave her doll flowers when flowers are supposed to be reserved for the nobles in that way. So I wonder if that's like foreshadowing or an indication of, again, people maybe having their own like mindset, not wanting to unify, changing the system, woohoo, right? All that stuff. It has nothing to do with Mistress Louise. And then it's a secret, right? And so she is like, yeah, so she's distracted because something that we know about Louise is how much she loves Lu's face and how obsessed she is with it, right? So she's just so distracted prettying up Lu, right, that she is able to do this. I wanted you to have them. Now, something very interesting here is that in anime, a lot of the times they'll do that like still tree and then they'll do the wind as kind of like a metaphor in a sense for like, I don't know, love or like blossoming or something. Like it's a very like anime thing to have like the wind blowing, right? Like the trees are silent, but then they start shaking to represent like new feelings and love. I've never done such a thing before. It feels strange. And look at her, she's just so cute, right? And so this is like an anime romance moment. And that's what I love about Shadow's House is that they give us everything. They give us romance, they give us mystery, they give us drama. Like it's great. Like they're giving us everything in this genre. Like, oh, it's just so cool. But I had fun when I was with you, and I thought that was really, like, look at her face. I want you and Master Patrick to make it past the debut. And look at him blush. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad he didn't push her in the hole because I definitely ship this, right? Like, I think that this is so nice. I feel like this is going to really change Ricky as a character and Lu as a character. It was a great character moment for her to finally, like, make a decision for herself and, like, you know, make good on her promise to Ricky no matter what Louise said. And I think that's just so cool. I owe you an apology. I'm sorry for doubting you. Come back. And so he won't come back, though. Will you abandon this path out of pride, Ricky? Right? Imagine that's kind of Edward talking. The path you've chosen doesn't lead to the finish line. It's all over for you. And so then he shoots out a signal. And so this sort of implies that even though he is in face, well, mostly, he can still like have a little bit of shadow or use his powers to an extent. So he sends out a music note in the air, which again, that seems like that's more of Edward's thing. And so if that's the implication or if that's the idea, it seems like Edward is a bit more of the murderous one while Ed is a bit more of the, I mean, I think that they are both participating in a system of change, but I think that Edward is definitely a bit more aggressive, right, with how they will, you know, the ends justify the means. He's like, okay, well, this is the time to kill Ricky so we can fail someone type of thing. And so then the veiled doll pulls the lever, knowing that it will kill him, right, or like thinking that it will. And so that's very interesting too for the veiled dolls, is that they are literally asked to carry out murder. Really, it's either they don't or they can't. I would say, like, can't just means that, like, they're not allowed to disobey under any circumstances, right? And, like, maybe there's, like, no thinking bone in their body, right? Like, they're just brainwashed or just zombies. Or don't could be just that they're, like, so far removed from just the concept of, like, humans and life and everything. Like, they're just so brainwashed that they just don't, like, they don't care. They don't really know what's going on. They just sort of follow orders. And so I feel like that there's a nuance to that, but either way, like, that's very interesting to me. That Halfwit was right. I've got no chance if I take this detour. Damn it, right? And then he sees the boulder, and this is where everything gets crazy. John's like, Ricky came back, and then we see that he's coming back, and I thought it would be a scorch. No, it's even worse than that. It's a giant fucking boulder, and that's just insane. And I love the animation here and the facial expression. Like, this is just such a crazy scene. I love it so much. And so John and Sean are like standing on the other side, and they're like, fuck, like, what the hell? Boulder, lift the bar on your side. I'd like to, but then I'd be the one put in danger, right? Because this is like a conveyor belt. Even if he lifts up the bar right now and they go around, he could get hit before the boulder is able to, like, stop against the wall, if that makes sense. Like, you know, like, saving him may be too risky because this is like a little conveyor belt. It's gonna take too long. But hang on, I'll think of something, right? And so they're thinking, they're like, how do we save him? How can we do this without any of us getting hurt by, like, this merry-go-round and it just taking too long? Take care of Master Patrick. He's quite sensitive. I fear for him once I'm gone, right? And you just see how much Ricky cares about him. And this was such an emotional scene too, because I feel like that he's saying, oh, he's quite sensitive, you know, take care of him. But I feel like that he himself, like Ricky is sensitive as well, you know? He needs to be taken care of too. And so I feel like that this is almost just to cover up his own fear. Like, oh, you know, I fear for Master Patrick, you know, he's sensitive, like he'll miss me, right? Like that's sort of the thing. He's like, you know, staring in the face of death, but he's trying to push those feelings aside and focus on Master Patrick still. Who knows what will happen if he fails the debut, but if he does survive this, and then you see that he's crying, Master Sean, please help him, right? So he's saying, you know, if he doesn't die because we failed the debut, you know, help him, right? Help him out. And so I feel like that this was such a good emotional scene, like a very nice character development for Ricky. I love the anime trope where the character with the slicked back hair, when they get emotional, their hair starts to fall. You can see his hair is all disheveled. And so it's good for like multiple reasons, right? Good for Ricky's development, good to see how much he cares about Patrick, right? But also that like in the face of death, it's not just about making sure that Master Patrick is taken care of, but this is just the most emotional that we have seen him. That yeah, he's not just this like, you know, asshole with a lot of like bluffs and bravado and manipulation. Like he's emotional. He cries at the idea that something can happen to Patrick even in the face of his own death, right? Like there's just so many layers to this and I love to see it. I'm not really sure about the face that Sean was making here. I feel like they could have made him a bit more emotional. He just looks like deadpan, you know? He doesn't look scared, he's not tearing up, he doesn't look sad, like he just looks, I don't know, it's just weird. And then he gets pushed aside by Master John, who ends up going in the conveyor belt. So this is what they meant, right? That like going around in the conveyor belt would be a problem, if that makes sense, right? Like that would be a problem because one of them would be left to get crushed by the boulder on the other side. So that's what I was trying to say earlier. This body has a mind of its own. So I think that John was saying that about Ricky, I guess, is that like the body has a like, you know what I mean? Like Ricky isn't just a face, like he is more than that. Like he was moved by his emotion maybe, or it could be like, you know, oh well, John has a mind of its own, right? Because Sean's like Master John, what the fuck are you doing? And he's like, I have a mind of my own, Sean, okay? Like don't disrespect me, okay? Don't tell me what to do. That's kind of how I see it as well. This can't be happening, Master John. So now you're upset, but like Ricky's almost here dying and you didn't show that emotional reaction, and I get it, but anyway. So I think that that's what he was trying to say. He was like, you know, fuck you, Sean, I have a mind of my own. Or that he, you know, saw great potential in Ricky as well and was moved by Ricky's whole thing right there. And so then he just punches the boulder. Like, I thought that he was gonna just, like, you know, stop it or something. He just literally, or maybe, like, floated away. Like, I guess his whole thing was explosion, though, so it's not that, like, it's not that out of the question, but I sort of thought, like, he'd just stop it, or maybe he'd, like, push it back up the hill somehow. No, like, he literally destroyed the boulder. And I just love this facial expression. I love the facial expression that both of them had and them holding hands. This was a great, like, bonding moment for them, too. And so now we can see what John can really do. This is a soot power. Nice face, Ricky. That's 3 points. So I think that he's basically saying that, like, hey, like, you know, Ricky, I was moved by your testimony, I guess. I was moved by you, so you get a 3rd point. That's why I saved you on, like, the ranking that he was doing before. So I thought that was, like, really in character for John and a really, like, great moment. He's like, yeah, you're a good face, you deserve to live. And so then we see Butterfly Lady has her face out, but her hands are still in soot. So that's sort of interesting. And this is like such a creepy scene. And so, yeah, like she's talking about the soot output, not him as in like, you know, John, like the child, but I still, there were bad vibes here. Especially this, like what the fuck is that supposed to mean? Like his soot? Like what the fuck? Like I don't even want to know. I don't want to know. Like maybe, like I kind of had this theory before that maybe Shadow Masters can consume the power of like other shadows somehow. Like I had this theory that anyone who has died would be consumed by Lord Grandfather and then like remade, you know, like everybody goes back to Lord Grandfather that has failed and like that's where his power comes from. So maybe that's kind of what she means, but like, we didn't need this. We just didn't need this. Hey, Sophie, you're so excited your face is showing. So yeah, that's her name is Sophie. We finally get to see her face. Her face is showing, so it seems, right? And so you see them two, they're just like, oh, well, that's, you know, I don't know exactly if it was a surprise thing or like, oh, yeah, her face is like a fed up type of thing. I'm not entirely sure. And then we see her, she recomposes herself and covers her face back up. And so I wonder, like, why? Like, what is your face for at that level? Like, they don't have their faces out around each other. Like, what is it for, you know? Like, it seemed like she wasn't supposed to do that, or like, not necessarily that she's not allowed, but like, that's like, oh, well, Sophie, your face is showing, put it back, you know? Like, why not? I don't know. Like, I don't know. To liven up the moment is a fine thing, so they say. Sophie, you utterly change when it comes to soot. So yeah, she cares about John's soot output, but I do wonder, like, why? You know, does she just like to see, like, powerful people, I guess? Or do they eat other shadows? I don't know. At last, the end of the debut draws near. Hey, why are these three going in circles? John went back to the other side, and now he must get back. But he can't rejoin Sean unless Ricky goes back, right? And so they're basically, like, all going in this circle, and that was my whole point, is that one of them would get crushed because of the little conveyor belt. And Rum, she's advancing after some confusion, and so why did she go in the tunnel? I'm a little confused about what Rum is doing, because I thought that the little hole that Louise had made was the hole on the other side, like right where Shirley is. Maybe I like interpreted that wrong, but I'm like, why is she taking the tunnel? I don't know, like maybe Louise made like multiple holes along the way or something, and so this was like the first hole, she has to go through the tunnel, then go through the second hole, we'll see. And so they're all like, oh, did Sunshine put funny ideas in her head? She's become positively heroic. Sean and John are heading for the exit, so I'm assuming that that's when the second bell rung. That was John and Sean, so it's sort of implied that they are safe. Ricky and Rum are reuniting with their masters. Yeah, so see, she comes out this way, and so I was like, I swear there was a hole on the bush right here. I thought that was where you were going. I didn't understand the whole tunnel thing. The living dolls are growing up by overcoming many difficulties, right? So they're, you know, this is all a coming of age thing when you really think about it. Like, this whole debut is a coming of age, and the dolls are also growing as well, but they're growing because of Emilico, in a sense. He's so pleased, he's chatting up a storm, but can he open the crate? So this was apparently the same puzzle that John had, but John just broke out. So now he has basically this mold. It's like a soot mold or something like that. And so you actually see, it seems like that she's serving the plans to her, right? So this is again Aline. The various confines Edward designed all soot as their key. Yes, and so I think that they're basically saying like the boxes both had a key, but then John broke out. Ricky has found a mold for making a key from hardened soot. And so, yeah, that is like the blueprint for it. We can see like how it works. You basically press them both together. You gotta put some soot in there. I'm assuming that like Ricky may have gave him some, or yeah, I guess so. That would make sense, like just outside of the hole. And then he could make the mold for the key. John was also in a crate, but he used his power to destroy it. And so what's interesting is that, like I said last week, they were given the same test, but my whole theory about that was like one was supposed to be a challenge for like Ricky, but then the other one was supposed to be a punishment for John, if that makes sense. Like, why were they both in the same crate when everybody got something different? Well, that's because Edward knew that like the puzzle here is, you know, how to get Patrick outside of the crate, right? But the puzzle was with John how to get clean, because he was so sure that John would just break the crate open anyway. It seems Ricky has learned by seeing Louisa's rescue and John's wondrous power, and so that's basically like how he figured out the puzzle. So it's like everybody helped each other along the way, which I really, really like, and so he gets him out, and like, look at him, he's still holding the flower, and I really, really like that, is that like they both like come out together, and he's still holding the flower that like Emilico gave him. Shadows gain trust towards their faces and praise them for their efforts. And so I thought that that was really nice. Thus their bond deepens. And so again, the whole bond thing, like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? But that is basically what's happening, and all a part of Edward's plan, I'm sure. Shirley has yet to emit any soot. This may prove difficult. So the whole thing with this was apparently as soot emitted, the flowers were supposed to fall down, which I find interesting, just because if they fell on Shirley, like, would she get a rash? Or was that supposed to be Edward trying to force Shirley to emit soot because she hasn't the entire time? And so I think these clippers were just in the bag because I don't know where else she would have gotten them from. That was the only confusing part. They must have been in the bag that everybody got. Like Kate's cage, the upper area comes loose if exposed to soot. And so what I'm wondering is that they were all supposed to fall, but it seems like that none of them would have hit her, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't have damaged Shirley, would they? I don't know. Like, that's kind of an interesting question, just because it seems like that if they would have fell, like, the whole point of the rash is to maybe, like, mess up the doll, like, to give a rash to the doll that messes up their face, right? We all know that that's not a good thing. Whereas if they fell on Shirley, like, would it matter? I don't know. But if they did fall on Shirley, she'd be covered in them and it would be harder to get around her. And so I wonder if this was like Edward basically forcing or trying to get Shirley to emit soot because they all would have just cascaded around and then all Rum would have had to do was cut Shirley free. Or if it was supposed to be like a trap where she would have literally just been covered in the flowers. I'm not entirely sure on that. Rum seemed quite wishy-washy, but she is unexpectedly resolute. It's an act of loyalty towards Shirley, and so I really like that. Like, she's just slowly cutting the flowers, a lot like how when you think about it, Emilico cuts the thorns, and she also has the little clippers as well. That's why I think that they were in the bag, right? And so it's nice how they like parallel or like mirror themselves. Now this was so frustrating because this is the conversation we all want to hear, but do we get to hear it? No! Right? And so I feel like they totally did that on purpose. And so they're talking to each other and they say, what's this? Is Shirley speaking? Right? So I think that she must be, and that's why like Rum looks so surprised. At first I thought that the translation was wrong and they were surprised that Rum was speaking, but I think that Shirley's talking for the first time and we can't see it, but it's all on purpose, right? Like obviously they don't want us to hear it, but I hope that we find out sometime what they were talking about. An emotional reunion, how unfortunate we cannot hear them, and I'm like, but we could have, you made us not be able to. The worst candidate staged a comeback, right? And so they even recognized that Edward's plan was basically to eliminate Ricky or Rum, right? Like that was basically the plan. Like Louise and John were kind of in the bag, but they're like, oh, don't worry, you know, like Kate and Emilico, they're the worst ones and they're still here. Patrick and Ricky took a detour, but at this rate, they'll likely make it in time. And so that's foreshadowing to the fact that Patrick and Ricky are actually going to see Kate, right? They are going to Kate and Emilico in order to help them, I guess, right? So that's a detour that they took, but they'll still make it in time. Likely, I don't know, Ricky could still die, but I think that, again, I feel like that just based on everything that has happened, I don't know, I feel like that Ricky has gotten so much development that yes, you could kill him, but he was already near death, so I feel like he's kind of safe in a way, whereas Rum is not. They better not all make it out merrily holding hands. Again, this is why I think that somebody's gonna die, because they're really gunning for, like, not a happy ending, right? Ryan couldn't stomach such an imbecilic ending. Yeah, so again, you know, like that whole thing, that's also why I think that we're not done yet. Definitely going to be death or like, I don't know, like just bodily injury in the next couple episodes. Well, Geralt, Aline, right? And so he's calling to them, like, don't you agree, right? Well, I think that that's why he yells at them, especially because of their connection to Edward. He's like, no, like, we can't have an incompetent ending, right? You two who know everything about Edward's game, like, give us reassurance that it won't end like that, but they don't say shit. So maybe everyone will make it out alive. Shadow's house is not so kind as to keep the incompetent around. The fact is that at every debut, there have been useless individuals, right? So that's like multiple. And so I wonder, that could point more towards the idea that like someone in their group died during the debut, right? In Edward, Aline, and Geralt's original group. But I still think that maybe one happened during and then one happened like post, if that makes sense. Edward has failed in his task if he cannot find them, like find the incompetent people. But this is kind of showing that everyone is competent. And I feel like if Edward could argue that, like his life may be saved even if nobody fails. Now, Ryan, it's not over yet, is it? They are still in play. So I think, again, they're talking about Kate and Emilico. At least that is where the camera pans over to, right? I'm not sure if that's a red herring, but... And so I really liked this scene. I loved, like, Emilico's reunion moment. Like, she's crying. She's just so emotional. This was such a nice, cute little face. I was so worried. I couldn't wait to see you again. Forgive me. I imagine this made you far more anxious than I was. And they have a little catch-up session. And I know that people were like, oh, they're running out of time. Like, why would they spend time talking about this? But I think that it's actually kind of endearing and cute that they catch each other up, just because it really shows, like, Emilico's personality. And Kate's kind of, like, nodding, you know? She's just like, oh, like, that's so terrible, right? She's kind of endearing Emilico in all these stories. And Kate may think that, like, it's too late, and so maybe she does just want to hear, like, Emilico talk to her one last time. I don't know. No, but it would have been nice to have a book, so she's basically kind of putting on a brave face. She's like, no, like, nothing bad's happened. I wasn't anxious, even though, like, she kind of was earlier. I just wanted a book to read. I was so bored, right? It was so dull here, but you must have had a terrible time getting here, so this is when the conversation happens. We were told to proceed through the garden alone. It must have been so lonely, so I just really like their back and forth. I saw lots of strange puzzles and traps. We would have had fun strolling through it together. Kate wishes she could have, right? So, you know, Kate's like very entranced by this story. I met other masters and dolls, and together we solved some mysteries. Really? So she's surprised. She's like, like the dolls that I knew that were like cutthroat in the debut room? Like, I think not, right? John came across Kate. He's an odd one. I saw him too. He was lots of fun. So now Kate's telling her own story of how she got here, right? She's just like, you know, while you were gone, John came over here, he said this, and then Emilico was like, yeah, he's lots of fun. So I thought that that was so cute. Would you like an orange? Maybe later, right? Like, again, I feel like that's kind of funny because it's like they're so short on time, but at the same time, they're still talking like this. Oh, what a wonderful apron. Hooray, I made it, hoping that you'd like it. I thought that was cute. Seeing you look like you always do is reassuring, and that's exactly what Emilico wanted, and I thought that was so nice. This test has shown me that all the dolls hold their masters dear, just as I do. That's right. And I defeated a bunch of Scorches. You had to do such a thing? Are you hurt? I just love their little, like, endearing conversation. What did you think about while you waited? Giving you the bread that you love so much. You just wanted to see her again. And then she's like, let's continue this later. And so I love their little conversation, but she is like, yeah, let's get down to business. It's not clear who, but someone is being greeted. So I would assume that that was John and Sean, just because they said that they were near the exit, like the adults were saying that in the other scene, like I had already mentioned. Now, about how Kate ended up in here, the controls for the cage are on the other side of the thorn trees. Edward said it is necessary for the debut. So it seems like everybody else was kind of like, not necessarily knocked out, but like, Ricky and John kind of seemed surprised that they were in the crate, so it seemed like that, like, she was actually, like, awake and, like, cognizant of what was happening. So I don't know if that was just, like, unclear to me, but I thought that they all kind of got, like, you know, knocked out and they just woke up to find themselves here, whereas Kate was, like, always awake. I don't know. The cage itself is a problem as soot enters the ceiling vent. The chains by which it's hung break, and it's only hanging by 5 chains now, right? So, like, obviously that shows that she had anxiety because the chains were breaking. Oh no, we must do something quick. How do I get over there? There's a path behind the cage, but the entrance is locked. Edward said that the keys will be available at the soot glass plaza, right? So, like, this was bullshit, though. Like, this was nonsense, okay? Like, how was she supposed to know that she would have to take the keys to save Kate, right? Like, that was just a setup, and he's like, I gave you one benevolent chance of passing, and I'm just like, well, she's not fucking psychic. How was she supposed to? So he basically sentenced her to death, right? Because there was absolutely no way that she would have picked those, right? So that was definitely on purpose just to fail her, right? Because he needed someone to fail. So he had already crucified her. Like, he's like, oh, of my benevolence, I gave you a chance. Was it really? No. But, again, maybe Edward's not so bad, like I already said. So then she takes her little clippers and she just starts making her own path. And that reminds me a lot of what Rum was doing. And so I love how they're all using, like, methods from each other and they don't even know yet. Then if I can cut through here, I can save you. And I thought that that was so nice. You never do give up, do you, Emilico? Kate likes that about you. But you can see, though, that she says that out loud, but on the inside, she's still nervous, right? And you can see that through the soot, because I feel like that at first I was like, oh, but that's a positive emotion. Why would that cause soot? But I think she's still emitting soot because she thinks that there's not going to be enough time, that they're not going to make it. She's just kind of like, oh, I love that you don't give up, Emilico, but deep inside, she's still scared. There's no time. See, she's like, there's no time. And so that's what she's worried about. Like, I love that about you, Emilico, but there's no time. We're gonna fail. Like, we're going to die, basically. Yes, I knew Emilico wouldn't give up. How marvelous, right? And so, show the third floor masters now how you struggle in vain until the very end, right? Because he's saying, you know, we need someone to fail. Put on a good show. That'll be a good show for the third floor. I'll get what I want. Emilico is trying her hardest, but Emilico, someone's coming. And so this was the detour that the adults hinted at before. So we have Ricky with the soot suit, because there's not enough time to do the soot remover. And so he basically like gave him fresh clothes, because the whole thing was a shadow's clothes cannot get dirtied. But they didn't say which clothes. And so I was like guessing before that someone may use that loophole. I thought it would be John, but I'm glad to see this too, because I did say, oh, well, Ricky has 2 sets of clothes, so maybe it'll be Ricky. He'll give the clothes to Patrick, so I'm glad to see that all worked out. Patrick, why now? Those are the shears that Lou chose, aren't they? It's a long story, and you see that his hair has still kind of fallen, so maybe that's representative that he's nicer now, that he's a nicer person instead of a slicked back asshole. I don't know. He must think that eliminating rivals gives him an edge, right? I knew we couldn't trust the other pairs, and so she's saying, like, even though Emilico said that they solved mysteries together, like, I knew we couldn't trust them, right? That's basically what Kate is getting at. But then Emilico says, what a relief, and her soot stops. That bell must, or the one before it, must have been for Lou. Lou gave you the shears to thank you for helping her, didn't she? So Emilico sees the truth right away, unlike John, because she's just so good-natured and sees the best in everyone. But in this case, Ricky did actually do the best. And I love this because we see him bow to Ricky, yet, like, you know, earlier when they said, oh, well, Master John, if you told Ricky, like, he would have no choice but to obey, right? Like, we saw that scene, and so if Ricky, or if Patrick had just told Ricky to give her the shears, there would be, like, no, you know, backtalk or question, because obviously Patrick has that power over Ricky, like how Sean was trying to say that John would have power over Ricky. However, you have him bowing as if to give Ricky the respect, right? And so it's almost like he's asking him politely, like, you know, Patrick is just asking, he's begging Ricky to give up his shears. He's not giving an order, right? He doesn't give Emilico the shears, but he's bowing, right? And so I don't know if there's another cultural meaning to that I don't understand, but I always thought, like, bowing was to show respect to the other person, right? And so it would make sense if Ricky was bowing to Patrick, but for Patrick to bow to Ricky, that's almost like the other way around, right? And so I feel like that it's supposed to be like he's not ordering him, he's like begging him, he's asking him, like he's pleading with him, give Emilico the shears, please, right? Like that's the idea, not an order, just, you know, a nice act. There is a debt to be paid, right? Like I really just love that scene then, like how they illustrated like Ricky and Patrick in that moment. Sean, Rum, Ricky, and Lou are all supporting our efforts, because now she kind of has a little bit of something from everyone, right? And now she has the shears, but it didn't start out like that. They changed because of you, and so Kate calls it. Exactly. I was a fool. From the very start, I was making enemies, not friends, and so Kate, again, realizing where she went wrong, very similar to the debut episode, love to see it. Emilico, it will take too long to cut it all down, just cut enough so you can get through, careful that you don't get hurt, and so she's just like, yes, ma'am, right? And so they're basically, like, working as a team, though, even though she is telling her what to do. And so she needs a key for the controls, and so again, Edward is just trying to sabotage them so bad, and so then, again, she gets anxious because there's no way, like, you can't just shear cut, like, metal, you know, you would need, like, a bike cutter, like a bike lock cutter, right? Oh no, the soot it's no use, the soot won't stop. Any moment, I'll be ... that could be dead, that could be falling in the ground, but then we see, like, Kate vulnerable and scared, and like so much emotion is coming through her, more than we've ever seen right here, and I really, really like to see it, even though obviously we don't like that this happened, but I did like to see it. And so she says, I'm scared, I'm so scared, I won't give up. And so you should just see her running towards her off of the crane thingy, and she just like comes forward and then I think that what happens is the cage falls and then she's just hanging off of the edge, and so she just like, they both both swing together and their momentum gets them in the wheelbarrow. And I love this, like, jumping through the soot, jumping through the darkness, and, like, you know, Emilico is the light. Like, I love the metaphor of that. And I love how they just, I guess the momentum of them just swung them both into the wheelbarrow. And I love that. Mia once told me that she was born brilliant, and you see the flowers, and so this is mirroring their winning, like, the debut, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, all the flowers being tossed is when, like, Lou and Louise actually made it past the debut. So I feel like the flowers here are metaphorical to the fact that, like, they have gotten through, and so they will, like, make it, and they will make it through the debut as well. Like, it's their own sort of flower coordination that they have won. They're good. In my case, it seems like I was born with a sturdy body. So again, my farmer theory, if you're a kid on a farm, you're doing lots of physical labor. Obviously, she wouldn't have been in the farm for like a week or a couple of weeks now, but point still stands. How very thrilling. It is getting quite interesting. It just made them threat over trivial matters. So again, Ryan is like, oh, well, you know, now they're threatening, they're not supposed to do that. Basically the same stuff he was saying before. Ryan was looking forward to their spectacular deaths, and so that would imply that if the cage fell, like, Kate would have died, or that they would have died if they failed the debut, and that he wanted to see that after, like, they would have gotten almost executed or something afterwards. So it could be either or because of the cage falling, or, you know, just because of what would have happened after if they were to fail. Nevertheless, is this not the end? And their end as well? And so, you know, that's what they're asking, like, oh, do they have enough time to get out? But Lord Grandfather, I think he laughs right here. I didn't quite catch it, but I think he's laughing in this moment. And so I think that he's chuckling to himself because he's like, hey, they fucking did it, you know? Like, maybe this isn't their end. Or maybe he said that. Maybe he said that, is this not their end? As in they wouldn't make it, and he was laughing at that. I can't necessarily tell, just because, again, the voices. And so it could be two things. He's laughing because he's laughing at them, like they were saying. The third floor lords were saying, well, isn't this the end for them anyway? Look at the hourglass. And Lord Grandfather's laughing because he's like, nah, like, they're gonna make it through, ha ha ha, right? Or could be the other way, that he's saying that, and he's saying, oh, it's their end. You know, there's still, like, much in store. I feel like Edward's gonna try some tricky shit. There's probably gonna be phantoms. There's probably gonna be, you know, bodies dropping. I don't know. I feel like there's gonna be violence in the next couple episodes. But that is my last screenshot, guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed my discussion. Oh, everything about this episode I absolutely love. You guys know my Edward theory. I feel like I've basically theorized what's gonna happen next episode. Violence! That's what's gonna happen next episode. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed my discussion, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!